Kamar Jalil is suing his former roommates, Katie Calderon and Amante Nepomuceno, for rent and the cost of 2 cats.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, everyone.
Case 2170, Jalil versus Calderon Nepomuceno.
Thank you. You're welcome. Oh, my goodness. Calderon.
Hello.
What's your first name?
Amante.
Amante.
Yeah.
Good. It's much easier than your last name for me to pronounce. Mr. Jalil, this roughly is what the case is about. You and Miss Calderon were in a relationship for a period of time. You decided to take an apartment. You were both on the lease. So far, correct?
Correct.
Your arrangement with Miss Calderon, which seems to be consistent in both your complaint and your answer, is that you had a much better paying job. She was going to provide the food and some other stuff for the house, and you were going to be covering the rent when you lived together, which you did.
Correct.
There came a time when Amante, who was a friend of yours, came to live with you. According to you, he was going to help out with the rent.
Correct.
He came, he lived with you, he helped out with the rent for maybe a period of time, and then he helped himself to your girlfriend.
Correct.
Now they're a couple. When you were no longer a couple with Miss Calderon, she stayed in the apartment for a period of time, but then they both left.
Correct.
And you're suing both of them for rent and for the return of 2 cats that they took when they left. You claim the cats are yours.
That's correct.
That's what the case is about. And some cat expenses in the event that I let them keep the cat. Cats. 2 cats. So when did you and Miss Calderon sign a lease together?
We signed the lease together at the end of July with the landlord present.
July of 2022?
July of 2021.
21.
Correct.
And it was for a year?
Correct.
And you had a job working for whom, sir?
I worked for a company called Steris.
What do they do?
They provide medical equipment to hospitals all over the world.
How long have you been working for them?
I'm going to have 8 years under my belt this year.
And when you moved into the apartment in July of 2021, what kind of work was Miss Calderon doing?
At the time, she was working at an animal hotel.
It was a pet daycare boarding facility.
Okay. Were you an hourly employee?
I was an hourly employee.
And I am correct that when you moved in July, your arrangement was that you were going to pay the rent.
That was...
The arrangement.
Correct.
When did Armante come to live with you?
About August to...
That's
Right.
correct.
Shh.
He...
Just...
Amante was going to be our 3rd roommate.
You mean 1, 2, 3?
Correct.
Well, you're not roommates, really. You and the defendant, Miss Calderon, were not roommates. You shared a room.
We shared a room and
Armante was going to live where?
in another room.
And what was your arrangement with Armante with regard to paying rent?
We would split the rent 3 ways.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And how much was your share of the rent?
I would say approximately $927.
How long did you live there?
I was there when they signed the lease. I watched it all happen when they signed the lease. I came in, they signed
Okay.
everything.
Well, you didn't sign the lease,
I did not.
but you were there from the beginning?
Yes.
And it was your agreement with the plaintiff that you would pay 1/3 of the rent?
Yes.
Great.
We asked the landlord
Okay,
to.
so, hey, try not to hold each other's hands. Let's do the coochie someplace else. So you agreed with the plaintiff that despite the fact that you were not on the lease, you were going to assume the responsibility of 1/3 of the rent, $927.
Yes.
So you moved in July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. You left in April?
Yeah.
So you were there for 9 months.
Yes.
Did you pay rent for the 9 months?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct?
He paid rent for about the 7.5 months.
Okay. And then you left.
Yes.
Why did you leave?
I decided to leave because he decided to go to another place he was offered. So
What do you
I
mean he
could-
decided to go to another place
He
that was...
got a place from his grandparents in another city. So I couldn't hold down the rent with her. So I decided to leave to save money and go back to my parents' house.
Now, Mr. Jalil, you see, you don't make up a story like that, like he just told me. A lot of that has the ring of truth to it. Where are you living now?
my grandparents' house in an in-law unit.
So when did you tell them that you were going to a different place?
In March.
When did you leave?
I left in July.
Did you let him know that you were staying until the end of the lease?
I
What? What?
I discussed with them that I would be leaving, but I would stick around to help them find either a different location or even suggesting that we all went back to our respected families just to, call it.
Mr. Jalil, this isn't working for you. I have to tell you something, sir. This case is not working for you at all. And it's only because Mr. Amante is very direct with me that you're suing them for $10,000. Where does that come from in your mind? Your agreement with her was you were going to pay the rent. You're never out of pocket. Your agreement was you were going to pay the rent. He paid his rent when he was there. He paid his 1/3. You then told them you were leaving. That's a whole different story than what you wrote in your complaint, Mr. Giulio. Do you understand?
Correct.
It's a whole different story. So, at best, Armante would owe you for 3 months' rent if they just left. But you told them that you were leaving. Now, when did you find out that they were a couple?
I found out at the end of April.
Were you all living together?
Yes.
So you just had 2 months left to the lease. So he was paying you. He paid you in March. You had May, June. You signed the lease in July. So it was over at the end of June, June 30th.
It would have been over at the end of July, Your Honor.
Well, she doesn't owe you any money for rent. At most, he owes you 2 months' rent. Tell me why you left.
My job doesn't pay that well, so I decided to go back to my parents' house.
When you took this apartment, this expensive apartment, that was almost $3,000 a month rent, had you had a discussion with Armante about moving in with you before?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Jalil, I'm reading your complaint because something wasn't registering right with me. You say you moved into the apartment together in August of 2021. Then you go through a whole bunch of stuff about a cat and then another adopted cat. You said in October we adopted a second cat. Around this same time, a third roommate moved in to shoulder some of the rent. Well, that's not true. He moved in right at the beginning.
And that was...
That was what?
That was...
A mistake.
That was a mistake.
Okay. But Armante acknowledges that he agreed right at the beginning. He volunteered the fact that he was there at the lease signing because it was agreed at the lease signing that he was going to pay a third of the rent. So, sir, you owe him rent as long as you show me that you've paid the rent. You moved out in July?
Yes.
And you paid your rent through July, or were you evicted?
No, I paid my rent in July.
Through July?
Yes.
Okay. 1854. Armante, you owe him $1,854. That's for 2 months' rent. Got it?
Okay.
I'm not subtracting anything because you stole his girlfriend.
That's fair.
What were you requesting when you filed your small claims case?
Either the return of both cats or $5,000.
That's not happening for you, Mr. Jalil.
And later today,
There were restrictions put on the space.
No.
You have to pay attention,
Okay.
sir, because what I'm suggesting is really in your favor.
Oh, okay. Let me. Okay.
Kamar Jalil claims his former roommates, Katie Calderon and Amante Nepomuceno, are wrongfully keeping his cats and owe him rent money.
Now let's deal with the issue with the cats. She doesn't owe you any rent. That was not your agreement with her. You moved out in July. August, September, October, November, December. 5 months ago, she's had both cats, right?
Correct.
She says they're her cats. When did you first file a small claims case?
September of 2022.
What were you requesting when you filed your small claims case? Be careful.
I was requesting either the return of both cats or $5,000, which was the accumulated expense of not just the cats, but also the expenses of our dogs as well. So any animal expenses for the time.
That's not happening for you, Mr. Jalil. When the cats were either registered or went to the vet, whose name is on the sheet as owner?
I believe it was Miss Calderon.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
And she owns the cats, and she's had them for the last 5 months. I suggest that you go and adopt 2 more if you want some more cats. Do you understand?
Yes.
You were living together as a couple. However, your friend Armante has to pay you for the couple of months' rent that he didn't because he says, not you, he volunteered that was your agreement from the very beginning. So he owes you $1,854. We're finished. Thank you very much.
This court is adjourned.
I think he's just kind of butthurt that I moved on.
At least now I can put everything behind me and say that I did try.
I didn't think it would escalate this far.
All you can do in a situation like this is just you learn from it and you move on.
The heart wants what the heart wants.
This is what it is. It's life.
I find fascinating, Sarah, that people will write and or be assisted in writing a complaint and an answer, but they read it over. This man is an intelligent man. He has a serious job for 8 years. First of all, he was suing for $10,000. Come up with that money. $5,000 for the cat's expense is ridiculous. But his complaint had really nothing to, even the timeline.
As your clerk, I know that is a pet peeve of yours when
I don't understand
they
it.
don't
You know,
match up.
if you're going to tell a lie,
At least tell a consistent lie.
right.
I think the right thing happened. I think the defendant friend admitted himself that he owed the rent, and that was great, even though he probably should have just kept his mouth shut.
And not said, I was there when the lease was signed. This was always our agreement.
Yeah.
I was going to be the
But
third
he was
roommate.
honest, which we always appreciate, and so I think the right thing.
So
I think he needs to, like you say, put a period, move on.
move on. Anyway, all happy, and they look happy. They couldn't keep their hands off each other.
Case number 2172, Foster Gardner versus Menzel. All parties, please come forward.
Jamar Foster and Sean Garner are suing record producer Livin Menzel for event costs after Livin canceled their Halloween party.
Who's Mr. Garner? Mr. Foster.
Right here.
Are you going to be speaking? You're standing in the speaking spot.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. According to what I read, the defendant rents a music studio. Is that correct?
I rent a facility in which I own a music studio.
You rent in someone else's building.
Yes.
And you're recording people. During the course of your business, you decided to enter into an agreement with the defendant to use that recording studio, which she rents from that space, which she rents from a landlord.
May I correct you, please, Your Honor?
Yes.
She actually is a facility that has multiple units in it. She runs a studio, and then there's other event space inside of that same facility.
Okay. Give me an idea of how large the space is.
I believe we were quoted something like 5,800 square feet.
And so you have a music studio, and around it is other open space.
Yes.
You decided to go into some sort of a business with her. You wanted to run events.
Yes, ma'am.
Social events, nothing to do with the music studio.
Absolutely not.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And according to you, you gave her $6,000,
Yes, ma'am.
sort of front money, to start using that space.
Yes, ma'am.
Subsequent to giving her the money, according to you, there were restrictions put on the space, on the number of people you could have, the kind of parties you could have, et cetera.
No, absolutely. I apologize.
Well, you have to pay attention,
Okay.
sir, because what I'm suggesting is really in your favor.
Oh, okay. Let me. Okay.
So, is really in your favor, so you have to think.
Okay.
Subsequent to giving her, that means after giving her the money, restrictions were put on the kinds of events and the number of people you could have in the space. Is that true or not true?
That is absolutely true.
No, that's not.
I'll get to you in a second.
Okay.
And you want your $6,000 back.
Yes, ma'am. And
That's what it's about. The defendant does not deny that you gave her $6,000. And then I'm going to hear what her defense is. So I want you to tell me when, for the first time, did you have a discussion with the defendant about going into this business venture where you would front the money and whatever events you would have there, you would reap the benefit, the financial benefit from that. When did you have that discussion with her?
Okay, so we met living at the end of August of 2022. We actually signed the agreement pretty fast. We signed the contract agreement on September 1st.
May I see the agreement?
Yes, ma'am.
There was no agreement signed, so I don't know how it could be signed.
She keeps arguing that.
Just a second. Could you be quiet?
Yes, ma'am.
So in your hands,
What's,
that's the studio that she runs.
Sarah, You have to sort of explain it because I don't see signatures. You know, I'm used to looking at contracts where people sign things, but I know you can sign things by DocuSign now. Your signature isn't on here.
Yes, ma'am.
And
That looks like a signature from a DocuSign or some sort of online.
okay, is that you?
This was a proposal that I did. I do not even own it yet as a DBA.
Just a second. It's getting better. Don't say anything. This is your proposal. Now I'm going to read it.
Okay.
And your masterpiece management.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, so this is sort of easy. You prepared this proposal. Speak.
Yes, after.
Just a second.
Okay.
You
Yes, ma'am.
prepared this proposal.
Yes, ma'am.
And as a result of this proposal, you received and deposited $6,000.
Yes.
Yes, well, then you have a binding contract, okay?
Okay.
So that's what I'm telling you. You have a binding contract. And there is nothing in this contract that limits the kinds of events or the number of people or anything else with regard to this space. All it says is business activities, event planning, and event rentals. Nothing else. And this is your proposal, so the terms of it are construed if there's any material question, since you prepared the agreement, which became a contract once you accepted their $6,000. I view the terms of the agreement most harshly against you because you prepared the document. And it says this agreement cannot be amended without the written consent of all parties.
Yes.
Yes. So signed the agreement, you got the money, and then at some point, according to them and according to you, you made certain limitations on the kinds of events, the numbers of people, et cetera.
That is.
Now that happened according to you because you do not own that space, you rent that space, and there was a problem with the first party that they threw.
Correct.
Come on, we're not talking about Gone with the Wind here. We're not talking about a 6-volume masterpiece. We're talking about a yes or a no. Based upon this proposal, they gave you $6,000, which you deposited into your bank account. That means a contract was created. Oh, that's the agreement. I'm telling you, that's the law.
Jamar Foster and Sean Garner claim record producer Livin Manziel broke their agreement by canceling their event. Livin is countersuing for the costs of a recording session.
Okay, there was a party that got out of hand.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and after that party that got out of hand, too many people or whatever it was, your landlord complained.
Yes.
Okay, and it was after that that you told your 2 partners that
We are not partners.
Yeah, according to this, you are.
We didn't finalize the agreement.
This is a finalized agreement, madam. I just said to you, I want you to pay attention. This is your proposal. Based upon this proposal, they gave you $6,000, which you deposited into your bank account. That means a contract was created. That's the agreement. I'm telling you, that's the law.
Okay.
You prepared the proposal, you signed it, they said, okay, and they fulfilled their part of the agreement by giving you $6,000, which you accepted. Got it? Got it? And you can't, according to the agreement that you prepared, modify this agreement any other way than a written contract signed by both parties. You can't change the rules. Did you know that this was rented space?
We didn't have all of the details about the place.
Well, see, next time you should know what you're dealing with, whether she's the owner or whether she's not the owner, whether she's a renter, whether she has the ability to rent out to sublease for events. I mean, all these things. Before you give somebody $6,000, you should know that. Okay. And you had one event at the space?
No, we actually didn't get an opportunity to throw any events at the space at all. The event that you were speaking of, she had partnered with another group of promoters and individuals to throw that party. So you
didn't have anything to
no,
do
we
with
didn't.
that? What was it, a Halloween party or
Yes,
something?
it
It was a Halloween party. But that wasn't with you.
No, that wasn't.
Is that correct?
He was a part of the
Is
event.
that correct? That
No.
it was with other people?
Yes, it was correct. It was with other people. They were just associated with the event. They worked at the event. And
I don't care whether they worked at the event. You received money from other people for an event.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, let's be clear. And after that event, you imposed additional restrictions on the use of the space.
No,
Just hold on a second.
They knew about the event.
Hold on. You can't tell me what they knew. This is your contract.
They called a fire marshal.
My landlord contacted me that the neighbors were complaining, people were parking on their lawns 90 minutes into the party, but it was not their party. Somebody else paid you for it. The next party they wanted to throw involved minors, and I told them absolutely not.
Yes, ma'am.
I just made it clear what types of events would be approved. Well, you can't do that. I'm just telling you, you can't do that.
Ma'am, I'm not allowed to throw events that have out drugs for children.
You have to understand something. You can do whatever you want as long as you put it in a contract. You prepared the contract. This contract is silent as to any restrictions on the space for events. So you have to give them their $6,000 back because they didn't have an event. They got nothing of value for their $6,000.
Correction. They were managing an artist whenever I met them that they were responsible for paying. So I'm countersuing them for $1,050.
Just a second.
Okay.
$6,000 they get back.
Okay.
Easy? That's a contract case. Now, you have a counterclaim, and your counterclaim is for $1,000 because you say they owe you that for a rental that they did for an artist that they manage.
I provided my services as a recording artist and a music producer for their artists. I provided them with 2 exclusive beats.
Well, show me the contract with them.
I have.
Just show me the contract with them.
There was no contract.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $6,000. Counterclaim dismissed. We're done. Thank you very
much.
This
court is adjourned.
I was just trying to have a proposal, not a finalized agreement.
Well, I appreciate us getting some type of justice out of the situation.
They came in wanting to do multiple things, and I was excited for my small business.
We tried as much as we could to help out and make sure that we increase the revenue streams inside of that business.
They're actually going to be hosting hookahs with children at your event in your space. I'm not comfortable with that.
To ever associate us with any type of drug use or abuse, especially involving children, that was just an inaccurate claim.
I think it's better just to part ways.
Move over to bigger and better things.
I was going to tell you I had the invitation, per se, for the event for Halloween that they had put together. So they put a lot of time and effort into planning the party. It seemed very legitimate. There was notes about security. There was notes about no alcohol, food and drink will be provided. So I could tell that they had put in a lot of effort to hosting this event. And although it wasn't a malicious breach on the defendant's part, I understand she hosted a party that had nothing to do with the plaintiffs, that she got into a little bit of hot water. So to be cautious, she was letting them know, hey, I can't host these types of events with a lot of people. It makes the street too crowded, whatever the reason. However, I disagree with you because I would have given them the full $10,000 that they were asking because although not a malicious breach, and I understand her concern after having the incident with the previous party, but that's not their fault.
You believe that the difference between the cost of one venue to another should be ascribed to them. It's interesting, but the $6,000 was to cover a lot of events. This is one event. So
I see your point now that you put it that way. I just think if you were going to make them whole, they should receive their expectant damages as well, or whatever they relied on based on the contract.
I accept your opinion.
Sure.
Is suing her clients, Ronald Webster, for unpaid wages while working as a homemaid.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge.
How are you, Kevin?
Good, good. Case 2168, Gallen versus Webster.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Gallen, you are a home health aide.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you go to any particular school or have any training to be a home health aide?
Well, I went to CNA nursing school, so I'm
CNA? What is that?
Certified nursing assistant.
And you've been doing that for over a decade?
Correct.
Do you need any license in the state where you're from in order to be a CNA?
CNA, yes. Caregiver, no.
But you have a license from CNA?
Yes, ma'am, and also have a license for a medical assistant.
Now, there came a time when you answered some sort of an ad by Mr. Webster. Mr. Webster had a mother who was ill and needed some assistance in caring for her. Are you a working man, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a caterer and a DJ, and also a driver.
Do you get any salary from any of those jobs?
It ranges from job to job. We're building
Usually, how much?
For DJing, a couple hundred.
Couple hundred for how many hours?
It's basically by the job, the location, things of that nature. So it can vary.
Caterer.
Catering, we're building a family business, so basically getting started with it. Probably made as much as $1,800 before for a catering event. So again, it was brand new prior to the pandemic.
Okay. Okay, and what's your steadiest source of income?
Driving as of now.
How much do you make approximately an hour driving?
Now, probably $22 with the subtractions for
$22 an hour?
Yes.
Is that with or without your tips?
That's with tips.
Did you always live with your mother?
I lived with her for quite some time.
Say within the last 10 years.
Within the last 10 years, I moved out 3.5 years ago. Due to illness, I was staying with her, so I was not really able to work. During that time, I went to school to become a caterer, cook, etc., culinary school, business school, because I did have aspirations to open a restaurant eventually, or a catering business eventually.
So you didn't live with your mother for the last 3.5 years?
No, Your Honor.
What kind of illness did she have?
My mother was diagnosed initially with COPD. I forgot exactly what those words are, but it's a pulmonary, it's with her
I know
breathing.
it's COPD. It's a pulmonary disease.
You're better than me. Then there's also emphysema, along with some other things that I was not made aware of until she passed away.
How old was she?
68 years old.
A kid?
Yes, Your Honor.
How long was she bedridden? From when to when?
November 23rd until her death date of April 30th.
So all the time that the plaintiff took care of her, she was bedridden?
Yes, Your Honor.
And was your mother pretty strong-willed?
Yes, very much so, Your Honor.
And the COPD and emphysema was in all probability, at least in part, if not in all, attributed to her smoking.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, according to your complaint, Ms. Gallion, you worked for Mr. Webster in taking care of his mother, with whom he didn't live. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did anyone else live with her?
My son lived with her.
How old is he?
He's 29 years old now.
What does he do?
He was working at the time for Tesla.
He was, but he's no longer.
No longer.
But at this time, he was working for Tesla?
He was working for Tesla.
The whole time?
Yes, Your Honor. The whole time
right?
from being released from the hospital up until her death day, yes, Your Honor.
Now, the house belonged to your mother?
Via rent, but yes, Your Honor.
She rented it?
Yes, Your Honor.
She was a rentor?
Yes, Your Honor.
So her grandson just stayed there with her?
Yes, Your Honor.
So he slept there, and you were supposed to come during the day?
Yes, Your Honor.
Monday through Friday?
Monday through Saturday.
Okay. Now, do you have the ad that you got from the defendant?
I do.
I see it, Kevin, please. Thank you.
I also have the messages, Your Honor, from that ad.
Let me just read this. Okay, so you were asking for somebody good to take care of your mother because she was a great caretaker all of her life.
Yes, Your Honor.
Very nice.
All of my life.
All of your life.
Yes, Your Honor.
And in it, he says IHSS for now. Would you explain what that is?
It's in-home supportive services.
From the federal government or the state?
From the state, if I'm not mistaken.
And you are from the state of?
California.
Well, this is what he wrote. So when you spoke to him with the same parameters of your employment as contained in his ad, that you would be working for IHSS for now, maybe more in the future. I don't know what that means. I assume it means that if it works out, you'd be paying her in addition to what she was making with IHSS.
No, Your Honor, I don't.
What does it mean? IHSS for now.
Yes.
Maybe more. What does that maybe more mean?
I honestly can't recollect what that meant. I am aware that I did send that text message or that Facebook post.
Is there anything in any of the text messages you have that indicates what maybe more is?
Yeah, just verbally, he stated out of his mouth that anything extra, him and his son would pay out of pocket.
Okay, extra like what?
Extra hours, if the hours that I agreed to work to, if it needed to be extended, my traveling time, my toll from where I was driving from, he was supposed to
reimburse you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct, sir?
No, Your Honor.
Now, you started working when?
February 24th was my first day.
From February 24th until April what?
23rd.
And that was 6 days a week?
It varied because depending on my schedule, so every other week I would work Monday through Friday, and then the additional weeks I'll work Monday through Saturday.
So it's between 5 and 6 days a week. And how many hours a day were you working?
5.
So when you came into work, was the grandson still there?
Sometimes he was, sometimes he wasn't.
And if he wasn't, Miss Webster was alone?
Correct.
And when you left, was she alone?
Yes, ma'am.
And then hopefully the son came back to assist her at night.
From my understanding, there was another caregiver that was supposed to be there at nighttime, which I never saw, so I'm not sure.
Did you have another caregiver there at night?
Yes, Your Honor.
And who was that?
Her name was...
How long was she there?
You mean her work time or her duration of employment?
Duration of employment.
The same time that Tracy started.
Did she get paid?
I'm not aware of
Just a second. Did you fill out papers for...
I Your Honor.
That's as it.
No.
If you didn't fill out papers for her, then either she was working for nothing or she got paid from you directly. Before you answer me, you had a nighttime person who was hired at the same time the plaintiff was. Either she was paid from an agency, or she was paid from you, or she did it gratuitously. What was it? Had your son ever applied to be caregiver for your mother? Think carefully before you answer that question, because this one knows all. Had your son ever applied to be your mother's caregiver?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. Oh, makes it so easy.
Tracy Gallen claims her client, Ronald Webster, owes for unpaid wages.
Now, the agency, was she paid from an agency?
Yes.
Don't say yes if she was not. If she was not paid by the agency because she didn't get paid, then say she never got any money from the agency. And if you never filled out any paperwork, she couldn't have gotten paid by the agency.
Correct.
Well, why don't you just...
Let me rephrase that, because this is where the trepidation comes along. Neither of the caregivers were properly inputted into in-home supportive care system. So there's an allotment that is allowed where caregivers can work in hopes of having a large lump sum payment once they get their paperwork, background check, and everything else taken care of. So up until the 29th, no one had gotten paid because no one had their paperwork taken care of yet. So it's on the 29th when that starts to come about. So I personally never signed any paperwork for neither of the caregivers.
It's not true, Your Honor.
Just a second. That's what he's saying. Okay. So he signed no paperwork. And she worked for you from February to March, March to April, for 2 months. How much did you pay her in the 2 months that she worked there?
Out of my pocket, I paid her $110 with a caveat. It was the first time that she worked on a Saturday. I asked her to do so because I had...
Just tell me how much you paid her.
$110.
Anything else?
Because I had a calendar DJing event. I was not fielding anything up until that point.
Mr. Webster.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
You seem like a nice man. It's going to cost you money. You can either make it easy or make it hard. From February to April, did your son work?
Yes, Your Honor. He worked at Tesla.
Then I'm not finished with you with that. Your son worked for Tesla. I assume Tesla paid him.
I'm assuming he got paid too, Your Honor.
And when you worked as a caterer, I assume you got paid.
I was not working as a caterer during that time, Your Honor.
Were you working as a driver during that time?
I did work as a driver during that time, Your Honor.
Did you get paid?
Yes, Your Honor.
Prior to the plaintiff getting hired and this other woman, had your son ever applied to be caregiver for your mother? Think carefully before you answer that question. Think very carefully, because this one knows all. Had your son ever applied to be your mother's caregiver?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. Oh, makes it so easy. And when did he apply to be your mother's caregiver?
According to the information I have, which I was just made aware of.
Just a second.
Yes, Your Honor.
That's a lot of... Your son is in your mother's house.
Yes.
You're there all the time because you're interested in your mother. You are the next of kin. You have to sign off. Did your son sign up to be your mother's caregiver, and when? Give me the month, day, and year that he signed up.
According to the paperwork I have, I'd have to look at it because I don't...
Look at it. You can look at it, digest it. Give me the date. See, Sarah, it's what's on paper doesn't always make sense, right?
Yeah.
You know?
You figure it out along the way.
Follow the money.
Yeah, always.
Always got to follow the money.
Leads you right to where you want to be.
Let's go.
According to the paperwork I have here, his paperwork was started on August of 2021.
When was it signed?
It does not state that.
And she started working in February. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So between August and February, Mr. Webster, who took care of your mother?
My son lived with her. He's, according to this, I was not privy to this information before.
Let me understand something.
Yes, Your Honor.
This is not a House Select Committee investigation, sir. This is just a court where I'm trying to figure out who took care of your mother, who was unable to take care of herself from August until February when you got another caregiver, and whether that person was signed up to get in-home health benefits. So the answer is, partially I know that your son, who lives with her rent-free,
I'm sorry, not with my mother, not rent-free.
Lives with her.
Yes.
Maybe not, then maybe Kevin and I are paying the rent. You never can tell. I don't know how much, and I can't ask you how much money your son made between August and February, but maybe she got a little too difficult for him to deal with because in stages of being sick that way, you require a lot more help than you want your grandson to take care of. And so you needed somebody else. Now, I've just about, Mr. Webster, reached the end of creating the picture in this case, but the plaintiff was there, and so far you've given her $100 in 2 months. You got paid during that time period. Your son who worked for Tesla got paid during that time period. You can bet your bottom booty that I got paid during that period because I worked. Nobody said to me, well, you didn't get your form in right there. We're not paying you. Really, you're not paying me. You can find me today getting my pedicure. She stayed, even though she didn't get paid. Now, if she didn't work for you, could you or your son have gone out to do their other work? Or would you have left your mother alone? What would you have done?
Possibly made other arrangements, Your Honor.
Possibly. You mean get another sucker to work for free? You think that she should work for free? You think that she should work for free?
No, Your Honor, but I don't think she should smoke cigarettes with my mother alone.
Listen, you have a counterclaim. Your counterclaim is stupid.
Okay.
Your counterclaim is stupid. You just told me before your mother is the kind of woman that would do exactly what she wants to do. And what you think yourself, since you're not there and off doing your thing, somebody who's terminally ill, not getting better. You knew that, right?
I did know that.
You did know that. And if your mother chose an easier way to go than the one you selected for her, that would have been her prerogative. That's also a fair statement.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so you didn't like the caring that she did for your mother, but actually her leaving had to do with your not paying her. You didn't fire her. Okay, let's put it this way. Did you fire her?
No, Your Honor, because I did not have the power to do so.
You did not fire her.
No, Your Honor.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Who is Ron Webster?
I am Ron Webster.
You hired her.
No, Your Honor.
Well, this is you. Need a good caregiver for my mom. Need. That means I need.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, let's go to one other place, okay? And then I'll let you talk. Right now, it doesn't seem to be that you're losing, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
In March, Miss Gallen, where's my money? You know, I'm taking care of your mom. There's no money. What does he say?
He kept blaming it on IHS. He needed to talk to them, and IHS just kept responding to me and was just like, he's crazy.
Tracy Gallen is accusing her client, Ronald Webster, of refusing to pay her after caring for his mother. Ronald claims Tracy smoked cigarettes and marijuana while working.
How much do you think the time that she worked there, taking care of your mother, was worth?
Your Honor, I personally cannot put a price on that. I know she's contracted through IHSS for $16 per hour.
Did your mother have a life insurance policy?
My mother had a couple of life insurance policies, yes.
What were they, and who were the beneficiaries?
I was a beneficiary
of one.
Both of
How
them.
much?
The total was $3,700, Your Honor.
Did she have a separate policy for her burial?
No, Your Honor.
Did she own any property anywhere?
No, Your Honor.
So what was the total you received from the estate?
The policies was set to pay $1,300, which I have not received all.
You mean in addition to the $3,700, you'll receive another $1,300?
13,000 is what I meant to say. If I said 1,300, I misspoke. 13,000.
13,000
total. Okay.
How much did you pay for the internment, the service, if there was one, whatever? How much did you pay? You paid for it, I assume, out of this money.
I have not done all the math. It's upwards of $15,000 or so. As I'm still
haven't done all the math.
I'm still making payments.
How much are you owed?
I have it there, 26. The whole breakdown is.
And
the amount was $29.12 minus the $300.
You say he gave you $300, not $140.
Correct.
Okay.
He cashed at me $300.
My question is that at $16 an hour?
Yes, ma'am.
Which is what you would have made?
Correct.
Do you have any other evidence to support the fact that he was helping you or that he agreed that this money was due and owed to you?
I have the email here where he was asking me to send a total of hours what he owed me.
Yeah, I see that, Kevin, please.
And then this is also the payment that he did pay me the $300.
Well, this is from you.
Yeah, he asked me to send that to him because he kept acting confused.
But this is from you to him.
Correct.
Can I see your answer to this when she sends you this document?
I don't have that email.
Well,
and
do you have...
I'm not sure if there's an answer. I could check my phone.
No. Okay. Now, in March, Miss Gallen, where's my money? You know, I'm taking care of your mom. There's no money. What does he say?
He kept blaming it on IHS. He needed to talk to them, and IHS just kept responding to me and was just like, he's crazy. I don't know why he keep reaching out to us. We keep repeating the same thing.
He said he never
has to
filled
pay
out
you.
forms.
Also, this is the contract that he signed stating that I am the IHS provider. If there's any extra fees that was over the hours that were allowed for her, that he would have to cover out of his pocket.
No, he said he never filled out these forms.
Well, no, that is the contract that he signed. We have to sign that with IHS first to approve me even being the worker for his mom. So once they approved me and I went through orientation, he signed that. He would be responsible for the hours. I kind of marked it on there where it states that this is the contract and this, this is what comes with it. Also, here are the timesheets I submitted.
Okay, not necessary. He acknowledges that he didn't pay you any more than, he says 100, you said 3, that's actually in your favor, $2,612. I suggest you take it out of the $13,000 that you received from your mother's life insurance. I'm sure she would like her caregiver paid, the one who took care of her in the last couple of months of her life. Your counterclaim, which is ridiculous, is dismissed as for the reasons I already said. The fact that the defendant may have either smoked with or allowed your mother to smoke in the last couple of years of her life is ridiculous. You know, you're the one who said to me, my mother is my mother is my mother. She'll do what she wants to do. Not something like that. Yeah.
Yes, Your Honor.
You're done. So's your counterclaim. $2,600.
This court is adjourned.
You know, my mom's death, I've been doing everything I can to make sure that she was taken care of. And, it's unfortunate.
I'm really happy with the decision today. I was glad that she was able to see through all the lies and everything.
The plaintiff would give her the cigarettes to stash for her so she would not overindulge herself smoking cigarettes.
Yes, I would go and get her the cigarettes because that was her last thing that she wanted, so.
At best, while taking care of my mom, she did a pretty good job with that. I've never denied that. I've also wanted her to get paid.
Just blamed it on IHHS and there was no really reason for him not to pay me at all.
I've been ready to put it behind me. This has been a nightmare since my mom's death and right before that. So I'm certainly glad to get it behind me.
I really did give her the best care that I could, She was happy. She was very happy, so I'm okay with everything.
Cases like this are sad, but it really shines the light on the whole sector that is elder law. And there's so many federal and state programs to make the elderly and vulnerable feel more comfortable, to be able to stay in their home, to be able to pick their own provider. But unfortunately, because of all the overlap and lack of oversight, there's a lot of fraud that takes place with the most vulnerable population. And like you were just talking about, your mother is the one that you rely on for a majority of your younger years, to keep you alive, bathe you, feed you. And towards the end, it's just unfortunate that they don't receive the same care as we do in the beginning.
Yeah, that not being watched as carefully by the people that they cared for.
Yeah, but the plaintiff here surprised me. I mean, working 2 months, 5 days a week.
And she stuck with the job.
For no money and no real end in sight for when she was going to be paid. I respect her for that. She obviously cares about her business and about her craft as being a healthcare worker, so I appreciate that, but it shouldn't fall on kind-hearted people like that to take care of our elderly.
Maybe. Not sure. Yeah. I think that not everybody is fortunate enough to have children.
Yeah.
If you have children that fit into that mold. And I think that it's wonderful that the state, for those people that don't have loving families to support them if they're sick or elderly, for the state to provide a mechanism for those people to get from their bed to a bathroom, to another room, to a meal, perhaps. I think it's wonderful. I think that this country, Sarah, can't do everything.
Yeah.
And I know that we discussed a moment ago, not bringing in another case, but to me, when you don't give money to somebody who did work in the betterance of society, and you send stimulus money to prisoners who were there because they did something wrong, and you send $1.2 billion in stimulus money to people who are serving life terms in prison, to me, doesn't make sense. But perhaps somebody will Straighten me out. Come on.
Atkins is suing vehicle owner Kelly DePanger for damages and lost wages from a car accident.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2165, Atkins versus DePanger.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Tell me your first name.
Destiny.
How old are you, Destiny?
I'm 14.
And you don't have a driver's license.
No, ma'am.
So you know you're not allowed to drive a car?
Yes, I do.
You took your mother's car without permission.
I did.
You were with a girlfriend.
Yes, ma'am.
Who also is your age?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh is not an answer.
Yes, ma'am.
And you stole your mother's car on what date?
October 7th or 8th.
Where was your mother?
Sleeping.
What time did you steal your mother's car?
Around 4, 3, around that time.
What?
Like, I say about 3:30. I'm sorry.
The morning, afternoon, or evening?
In the morning, a.m.
3:30 in the morning.
Yes, ma'am.
And you had an accident.
Yes, ma'am.
You had an accident with this lady's car.
Yes, ma'am.
And instead of stopping, you took off, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And it was a bad accident.
Yes, ma'am.
And was the damage to the side of your car? Was the damage to the side of your car?
No, ma'am.
Passenger side?
No, ma'am.
Don't play. Passenger side? No. Driver side? No. Where was the damage to your car?
The front.
Front. Okay. So now that I've got the clear picture, you stole your mother's car, you have no driver's license, whatever insurance your mother had on the car would certainly not cover this accident because you're an unauthorized driver, you have no driver's license. Your mother certainly wasn't going to report you to the police for stealing her car. I don't think you did that, no, right? And the damage to your car was in the front. Front. You're going to tell me, but just so that I know. The damage to your car was on the side.
Yes, ma'am.
Of course. You see, cars don't slide together. Do you know what I mean? One car hits another. Mm-hmm. Do you understand? Yes. Is not an answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Better. Okay, so now we're going to go to October 8th.
Yes,
okay?
Your Honor.
You were on your way to work?
Yes, ma'am.
And Miss Atkins, tell me what happened.
I was going to work. It was 5:30 in the morning. I was going up Franklin Road. I got to Brookville Road.
You were driving straight?
Yes, I'm going up Franklin Road. Mm-hmm. I get to a light at Brookville Road. I make a stop because the light is red. I'm sitting at the red light. The light changes green. I proceed to go through the light at the green light. The defendant is coming the opposite way from me. She's not in the turning lane. She's in the regular straight lane. So I see her coming at a rapid speed. But I'm thinking she's going straight, so I proceed to go through the light. By the time I get mid-light, I don't know what happened, but she decides to turn. And when she turns right into me, and hits me.
Okay, and then what happened?
And then I hear her and her friends are hollering. Her friend is hollering, "Run, Destiny, we have to go. Run, Destiny, we have to go." I'm still trying to get myself together, and I'm looking, and all I could do was grab my phone and dial 911 to call the police.
And by that time, they were gone?
And by that time, they were gone.
Miss Atkins, how did you find her?
We called to the insurance company.
No, wait a second.
Okay.
How did you find her? They took off.
Oh, they took off.
They took off.
Her car was still at the accident.
Oh, so they ran and left the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
So my husband came. I had called my husband as well. He came to the accident scene. He took pictures of the cars and the plates, and we contacted our insurance. Our insurance gave us the name, and I went on Facebook, and I looked her up, and I seen Destiny, who I had seen run from the accident. And we found out she was hiring for a job. So inboxed her, found out where she worked, and we went to her job.
You mean her mother?
Her mother.
Her mother.
My daughter inboxed you and asked you what...
Don't speak to her.
I'm sorry.
Don't speak to her.
Okay.
What?
Listen to me. Whatever you say is no good. Just understand that. Your daughter stole your car. She's 14 years old. She could have killed people. She could have killed people. There's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for her stealing your car. Has she ever done it before?
No.
But she did.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And she did, and she had an accident because she didn't have a driver's license. She lacked state permission to be behind the wheel of a car. Let's go. Did you know your daughter had been in an accident? Of course you did, because she left the car there, right?
Yes.
So you knew she had been in an accident?
Yes.
Did you contact the police?
No.
Why not?
Tanya Atkins claims vehicle owner Kelly DePanger owes for damages after Kelly's 14-year-old daughter crashed into her car.
So she didn't have a driver's license. She lacked state permission to be behind the wheel of a car.
But she still harassed me, though.
What?
At my job. She harassed me at my job.
Just a second. Did she contact you first?
As far as...
Just as anything, contact.
No.
Email. So
I don't know who her daughter was.
You're going to, what?
I didn't know who her daughter was trying to contact me on Facebook.
I don't. Did you know your daughter had been in an accident? Let's go. Did you know your daughter had been in an accident? Of course you did, because she left the car there, right?
Yes.
So you knew she had been in an accident?
Yes.
Right? Did you contact the police?
No.
Why not?
She came to the house freaking out and, you know, in panic of her getting in an accident. And my daughter
So
is
what did
telling
you, just
me...
a second, so what did you do? What did you do? Your daughter stole your car. I see the picture of the accident. The picture of the accident clearly shows that your daughter hit her car. Your daughter's car is the gray one.
This is the very first time
Just a
I've
second.
seen this.
Well, I'm telling you, when you have front-end damage, that means you hit somebody. She's wrong from the get-go. So I'm asking you, she came home, you told somebody, did you call the police and say, listen, my 14-year-old daughter took my car without permission, there was a bad accident, I hope nobody was hurt. Did you do that?
No, I did not.
No, of course not. You waited for somebody to find you.
No, not necessarily.
Well, what do you mean not necessarily? Unless you contacted somebody, did you go back to
I was under the impression that they called the police.
Just a second, what would give you that impression? Your daughter ran away.
She said that cops were called.
How did she know the cops were called? She ran away. What?
The cops were there. A cop had spoke to me that night. I was
after the accident.
No, before. I mean, yeah, after the accident. But
well, the accident happened 3:30 in the morning. The officer spoke to you at night. That's after the accident.
Yes, ma'am. But there's a fire department right by where we got into an accident at, and there was a police car parked while I was fleeing the scene. And he had asked me what I was doing, and I told him that I was fine and that there had just been a car accident. And he went.
And the policeman told you to leave?
No.
He stopped and spoke to a policeman that there had been this kind of car accident, that you were driving with that, and the policeman told you to leave? Okay. Did you notify your insurance company?
Unfortunately.
That's either a yes or a no.
No, because I don't have insurance. It lapsed.
Double whammy. So your daughter follows in her mother's foot. This is the example that you're setting. She's driving your car without a license, and you have a car that has no insurance. That's a great lesson. And so what happens is a perfect storm. Your car without insurance, driven by your unlicensed minor child, causes a stupendous accident where someone could have been killed. You don't call the police. Did you go and look at the scene of the accident? It's either a yes or a no.
Not the scene. No.
The scene. I'm talking about the scene of the accident. Your daughter came home. Did she tell you right away what happened? Shh. What time did your daughter get home?
About 7 or 8 in the morning.
Well, where did she go after the accident? Did you ask her?
She was waiting for a ride. She had woke me up in my sleep and told me about the accident.
So the accident that happened 3:30 in the morning, according to her, or 5:30. So she was driving around for a couple of hours before the accident happened 5:30. An hour and a half later, she woke you up?
Yes.
Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, ma'am.
And did she tell you where the accident happened?
Yes.
And what did you do? 7:30 in the morning. She had a terrible accident. She told you where it happened. Did she tell you that she ran away from the accident?
Yes.
What did you do?
Well, she does have severe asthma.
Just to say, I don't care whether she has severe asthma or not. It's irrelevant to me. I'm asking you what you did.
Right.
What you did. Your daughter calls you Not from
calls,
the house.
She comes in the house.
Oh, I thought you said she called you. Not important. She came into the house at 7:30. She told you that you stole the car, went for a joyride with her friend, whatever language she used, and she had a very bad accident. The car was demolished. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you do? 7:30 in the morning. I want to know what you did. 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock. What did you do?
She wakes me up. I'm freaking out. She's freaking out.
I don't care freaking out. It's not relevant. Don't speak to your mother. I'm asking your mother a question. What did you do?
As soon as she told me that, I was freaking out about it, and I went into mommy mode because she was outside in hours, waiting for a ride. So, and she was having asthma problems. She was in a panic. So I immediately, I was trying to figure out what's going on, but I also wanted to make sure that my daughter was okay.
Oh, that takes a half hour.
So
that takes a half hour. What did you do at 8 o'clock?
And I gave her a breathing treatment.
What's that? After you gave her the breathing treatment, that's 8 o'clock. Now it's 8:15.
As we're giving her a treatment, we are looking through the phone, internet and looking to see what tow companies, what place would have our car. And we finally figure out where our car was, and I got a ride to go look at my car.
What time?
I would say maybe about 9, 10 o'clock.
Okay. When was the call to the police? Now you took care of your daughter, you gave her a breathing treatment. You looked through the internet. When did you call the police? Your daughter was involved in a hit and run.
I was under assumption that the police were called.
Who told you that?
That the police was at the scene.
Just a second. Who told you that? She ran away.
Well, I do know that the car got sent to a police, impound, towing company.
You didn't know that until you looked it up.
Right.
I'm asking you when you called the police.
So
the answer is you did not.
No, I did not.
Okay. Now, so I don't have to go look any further. No insurance, no driver's license, fled the scene, her fault. How dare you have a car on the road without insurance, and how dare you place other people at risk by getting behind the wheel of a car when you're 14 years old and have no business doing that.
Tanya Atkins is accusing vehicle owner Kelly DePanger of refusing to pay for damages after Kelly's 14-year-old daughter crashed into Tanya's car.
So now you have insurance.
Yes, ma'am.
And there was a note on the car.
Yes, ma'am.
The car is totaled. It looks like it's a total car to me.
Yes, ma'am.
How much was left on the note for the car?
$35,000.
Was left on the note?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll take a look at those papers in a second. And what was the check from insurance?
They paid $30,000.
Can I see, please?
I don't have my glasses, and they're in my purse. I'm sorry.
Maybe your husband can help you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So am I correct that they paid you $35,749? Is that what they paid you?
That's what they paid the dealership. Yes, ma'am.
$35,749. And the amount financed was $39,800?
That is correct.
And you hadn't made any payments?
Yes, ma'am. We've made payments.
This is $39,826, but you made payments, so that would reduce the amount of the loan.
This is the original copy of when we purchased the vehicle. And then I have a list of the payments that we made right here.
What I want to know is you're suing for the difference between what was paid
Yes, ma'am.
to the loan company and what you still owed that you had to make good on, correct?
Correct.
How much money did you have to make good on to the loan company? It's not $5,000.
No.
How much money did you have to pay the loan company to clear the debt?
What we had was called a gap insurance.
So you had gap?
Yes, ma'am.
So all you had was a deductible. So all you had to pay was if you had gap.
Which was a $500 deductible.
Just a second.
Sorry.
That's all. That's what I want to know. You had gap insurance, so the gap covered whatever the
gap
difference.
didn't cover the complete loss of the vehicle because they said we didn't have uninsured motorists, so we had to come out of pocket.
So now I want you to show me
Yes, ma'am.
what your out of pocket was. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not understanding this. You want to tell me what the out-of-pocket is? Gap paid. How much?
The rest besides 17.
$17.56.
Yes, ma'am. That's what we owe out of pocket.
Okay, not $5,000.
No,
$17.56.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, that certainly has to make you whole. I knew it wasn't $5,000 because
Yes.
it says you had gap insurance.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. $17.56. Now, you were taken from that accident scene to the hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
Which hospital?
To Community East.
Were you taken by ambulance?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you stay in the hospital?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did you have any uncovered medical bills?
No, ma'am.
Were they all covered?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So your out-of-pocket expenses $1,756.
Yes, ma'am.
And the discomfort that brought you to the hospital?
Yes, ma'am. And I have a lost wage paper from my employer as well.
I'd like to see it.
Also, if I may say, ma'am, we had to rent a car, obviously, because her car was totaled, and the bill is in there as well.
Well, your out-of-pocket expenses, including your lost wages because you didn't work a full shift, you are an hourly employee. Those expenses, your car expenses, the $17.56 all amount to about $3,000. You're suing the defendant for $8,000, right?
ma'am.
I'm awarding you the $8,000. How dare you have a car on the road without insurance, and how dare you place other people at risk by getting behind the wheel of a car when you're 14 years old and have no business doing that? Do you own or rent your own home?
We rent.
You rent. Do you work?
At the moment, no.
Were you working then?
Yes.
Okay. What happened to your job? That's what you're going to tell me. You're going to tell me she came and she harassed you at your job. Tell me how.
They both did. Well,
No, not both. Her.
The
Plaintiff.
Well, her husband is the one that did the talking.
And he said?
And he told me, I have never seen the accident until now, so I have no idea. I believe my daughter.
Well, you shouldn't.
her.
Why would you believe a thief?
No.
And a liar?
Believe what happened.
But why would you believe a thief and a liar? She may be a thief and a liar, but she's not stupid. If the plaintiff hit her, she would have stayed at the scene because she got hit. Doesn't that make sense to you? That if she was the one who was in the right and got hit by the plaintiff, she would have remained. She said she saw a police car there, and she spoke to a policeman. So if she was in the right in the accident, what'd she leave for? Okay, you don't know. Judgment for the plaintiff, $8,000. We're done.
This court is adjourned.
It was very frightening. I've never been in an accident before, and so that time of morning, I'm on my way to work, so I'm not expecting that, of course.
I mean, my daughter took my car.
I'm glad that justice was served.
When I tried to come out to make the turn, I seen her and we crashed.
I really don't think she gets the concept of what she done.
I don't have a car.
And her mother doesn't either, obviously.
Single mom without a car.
I think she was trying to get out of paying the money.
I mean, I immediately went into, mommy mode because of her asthma issues.
And I think she also was only concerned about her daughter, which is another big issue to me, too.
But I was frantic. I didn't know what to do.
You didn't never once mention, well, I wanted to check and see if the plaintiff was okay.
I mean, my daughter could have been way worse. I'm just happy she's still here with me.
Make sure you watch your kids. I've been a single parent as well. I raised 3 kids and I've not had to deal with this situation. Don't lay your keys around.
I will never understand parents like the defendant who cover for their children who have done outrageous things. If I came home and told my father and my mother that I stole their car, was 14, driving a car, and fled the scene of any type of accident, I would need a breathing treatment after they were done with me. That is how it should be, because that is how you raise responsible, accountable children, to raise them into adults.
I couldn't agree.
Kara Simmons is suing her former friend, Jania Freeman, for water damage caused by Jania's 14-year-old daughter.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge.
Hello.
Case 2180, Simmons versus Freeman.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Simmons, how long have you known Ms. Freeman?
I met her in the 3rd grade. I've seen her a few times since then.
And you were having a party for one of your kids?
Yes, my oldest son.
How old is he?
12.
And it was a house party. And was she invited?
She was invited. I invited everybody from my Facebook, my family, and my friends.
How many people did you have?
There was about 10 kids that came.
And one of those children was the defendant's daughter, who was 14?
At the time, yes.
Is that you?
Yes.
Stand up next to your mother. Tell me your first name.
Miari.
And did you come with one child or more, Miss Friedman?
Two.
Your daughter and who else?
My 11-year-old son.
And at some point in the party, the kids went outside.
Yeah, so it was inside of a party room, and they were on the second floor, and they were able to go play at the equipment that's on the second floor.
Do you have photographs of the equipment?
I do on my phone, but I have a picture of where her daughter was playing at.
Let me see what you have. Okay, come up here. Is this where you were playing?
Yeah.
On the grassy area?
More like, so it was three of us. We were all sitting right here, and I just so happened to be like more inside of the plant.
I just want to know whether you were in the planter or outside on this grass. In here or out here?
Both.
So you were both?
Yeah.
Okay. Now you can go back. Okay. Just for my information, what were you doing in the planter?
Well, more like I was like on top of it, not necessarily like in it. I wasn't trying to be in it, but my friends were sitting down and they were talking, and I didn't want to sit, so I was standing up on it.
Standing up on this is not my question. Were you in the planter where the plants were?
Yes.
Yes. Well, you knew you weren't supposed to be in the planter where the plants were. I mean, you're an intelligent girl, aren't you? Yeah. So you knew you weren't supposed to be in here.
Yes.
Right. Okay, that's all. You know, I mean, we're not talking about a homicide here. We're talking about being someplace you're not supposed to be, in the planter. So it was just the three of you outside.
Yes.
The two kids who were sitting on the edge of this planter where you're supposed to sit, and you who were both on the edge and inside the planter.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me what happened with the head of a sprinkler system while you were out there.
So what happened was we were talking and playing, and I was running around, so I was going from it on top of it, trying to be tall, running off the grass onto the steps, onto the planter and stuff like that. And somehow, I'm not really sure, I don't really remember, but the green thing that was in it, I don't remember what made me notice it, but I do remember that my foot had made contact with it, and I started to notice it, and I was looking at it, and then I was like, something's wrong here. I seen the top to the green thing, and I felt like that may have been me who removed it, so I thought to put it back. And as I was trying to put it back, it was being mad difficult, so I started jumping on top of it to make sure it stayed on top.
Let's get back to you. At some point after this happened, you were contacted by the landlord of your facility.
Yes, but I didn't know that she was outside doing that.
I don't care. She's just acknowledged that she did it. Why would that bother you?
It doesn't bother me.
Well, then it's not relevant. She acknowledged that that's what happened. She was in the wrong place. She broke something.
Mm-hmm.
According to her, she tried to fix it by jumping on it. Clearly the wrong thing to do. So if there was damage as a result of that, there's no question she's responsible. Since she's a minor, her mother's responsible. It's that simple. Okay? Do you have a video of what happened that afternoon?
Yes.
Okay, can we see that, please? This came from security camera?
Yes.
Okay, you're in the white shorts, right?
Yes.
What are you bending down to pick up?
The top.
You mean it's that heavy and then other
Wasn't
kids get...
heavy.
Shh. Okay, I got it. Well, you understand, Miss Freeman, if Miss Simmons can establish that something that your daughter did, which she did on purpose, knowing she wasn't supposed to be there, you're responsible for whatever damage she did as a result of that's probably a sprinkler head. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because you say in your answer that you left for a period of time and she didn't properly supervise your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that's not true because your daughter's 14 years old. She's old enough to be outside unsupervised. There were younger children out there who knew enough not to jump around in the planter. She was the only one who jumped around in the planter. She was the oldest one out there.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yes.
She was supposed to supervise them. If there was a 6-year-old who did that and she's outside, you would let a 14-year-old take care of a 6-year-old. And she doesn't require her supervision. And when she had a problem that day, and clearly it was a problem with somebody else's property, When the two of you were home that evening, did she tell you she had had a problem?
No, ma'am.
She didn't tell you anything about it?
No.
That she broke something?
No, ma'am.
Okay, when did she finally tell you she broke something?
When Kara contacted me that the apartments were contacting her, then I asked my daughter about it, and she told me what she told you.
Great. Can I see the letter from the complex, please? Do you know how many children she has?
She has 3 children.
So she's dispossessed from her apartment. That's 4 people who are homeless. She's going to lose this housing unless she pays the damage that your daughter caused. That doesn't seem reasonable for her to lose her housing, does it?
And later today.
There's no question in my mind that you left this mess because she was quadrupling your rent. But you were annoyed. You're still not allowed to leave a place like this.
Kara Simmons claims her former friend, Jania Freeman, owes for water damage caused by Jania's 14-year-old daughter.
So what this says is that they looked at this video because they tried to determine what caused the leak in a commercial business operating in the building. The leak caused substantial damage, $9,927 to be exact, as a result, because this was a water pipe and it was broken. Okay, and it tells her that unless they get this $9,927, she's going to lose her housing, right?
Yes.
Your fault. What can I tell you? Don't let your mother ask. I'm asking you, what's the issue? You caused the damage. Whether you accidentally hit that pipe initially, you knew you shouldn't have been there. And it's clear that whatever you were doing, you were jumping with full force with both feet on that pipe. That's clear. You tried to pick it up. You leaned over at least twice to try to pick it up and then put it down and then stomped on it. Clearly, you weren't supposed to be there. The landlord is holding her responsible because under the terms of her lease, she's responsible for any damage caused by not only a member of her household, but an invited guest. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay, so sometimes if you're acting stupid, nothing happens. Sometimes if you're acting stupid, a lot of things happen. Do you know how many children she has?
She has 3 children.
They all live at home?
They all were there, yes.
Yeah, so if she's dispossessed from her apartment, that's 4 people who are homeless. She's going to lose this housing unless she pays the damage that your daughter caused. That doesn't seem reasonable for her to lose her housing, does it?
No, no.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $10,000. We're finished. Thank you very much.
This court is adjourned.
The truth is that you don't host the party and you don't watch the children that are on your property.
They're teenagers. They're old enough to be outside alone.
All of those children were in the planter at some point, but it's fine.
There were no other children in the planter.
I would think that there should have been something for like flood, fire, or earthquake damage in place, so I don't know.
But she should take responsibility for her daughter. That's not my responsibility.
Relatively simple. You know, I think that there is an age, Sarah, where even under these circumstances, a child can be out unsupervised. Certainly, the defendant's defense in her answer said that her daughter was out unsupervised because she left the party for something for a short period of time. Well, there's no issue that a 14-year-old
doesn't need to be constantly
supervised. You usually use a 14-year-old to supervise other young children.
I do think it was an accident. I think that she knew she probably wasn't supposed to be in the planter, but once we saw the video, it was playful. They were playing a ball from up high, down low. I understood the situation after we saw it. You also understood that the stomping full force as a 14-year-old could do some real damage, especially inside a planter that's supposed to be a delicate, untouched area. So I understood. I think the defendants were in a tough position. They knew it was their fault. I appreciated that they took responsibility for it.
The daughter did. The daughter did. I'm not so sure about the mother.
I think the mother saw the big price tag attached to the responsibility and maybe tried to backtrack a little. But yeah, I mean, accidents happen, but there are big consequences for...
She learned that lesson, this young woman, today.
I hope that they did.
Case 2185, Francis versus Morris. All parties, please step forward.
Danielle and Michael Francis are suing their former tenant, Anthony Morris, for property damage and loss of income.
Miss Francis?
Yes, ma'am.
Who is this?
It's my husband.
Well, this has to do with the ownership of a home. Do you both own the home, or just did you inherit the home?
It doesn't have to do with ownership of the home. It's a case about property damage.
I understand that.
Yes, ma'am.
But somebody owns the home. Who owns the home is the question. Not your husband.
Correct.
Have a seat. Let's not confuse it. Ms. Francis, you had a brother.
Yes, ma'am.
Whose name was?
Julius.
How old was he?
My brother was 38.
And your brother owned a home?
Yes.
How long did your brother own this home?
He just purchased a home in 2017.
Do you know how much he paid for it?
About $123,000.
Was there a mortgage on the house?
Yes, ma'am.
How much is left on the mortgage?
$110,000 now.
Do you know how much the house is worth?
Yes, ma'am.
How
It's
much?
worth $213,000 now.
So almost double.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, your brother passed away when?
June of 2020.
From what?
Pancreatic cancer.
So it was relatively fast.
Yes, it was. He was actually diagnosed in 2019. So in early 2019, I became his caregiver, taking him back and forth to the doctor and chemo visits, as well as my husband.
Okay. Now, Mr. Morris,
Yes, ma'am.
you had been a roommate of Julius.
That is correct.
For how long?
I moved into the house on October 19th, 2019.
And you paid rent.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when Julius got sick, according to what I read, you never moved into the house with Julius. You just took him to where he needed to be. Is that correct? You lived with your husband.
Yes, ma'am.
You lived with your husband, and you came as needed to take your brother to medical appointments, et cetera. You lived in the house with him.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Partially.
What's not partially?
At the end of my brother's illness, I moved in with him because
How much before?
I would say March of 2020.
So for a couple of months, towards the end, you moved in. But during the course of the year, you lived with your husband and you lived in the house with
Yes,
Julius.
ma'am.
And when you were living in the house with Julius, did you give any assistance to him in any way?
Yes, ma'am. I took him to the hospital several times. I cooked for him, and I pretty much did the chores and ran the errands for him.
Did you know him before you moved into the house?
I did not.
After Julius passed away, you inherited the house.
Yes, ma'am.
Did he have a will?
Yes, ma'am.
And the will specifically gave you the house?
Yes, ma'am.
And you and the defendant determined that he would remain a tenant in June of 2020. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
There came a time when you moved out, Mr. Morris.
Yes, that's correct.
And what month and year did you move out?
June 1st, I believe, 2022. Correct.
And what was the reason that you moved out?
I moved out because the rent had went up for a second time.
What was it when you were living with Julius?
$650.
And then when Miss Francis inherited the house, did she modify the rent?
She did.
In what month?
I'm not specifically, I can't answer that question.
What did she raise the rent to?
Approximately $1,200.
Was that the first increase?
That was correct.
How long did that increase stay in place?
That had to be for a year. That was the term of that lease.
And what happened after the year?
She raised the rent again.
To what?
Well, that's when I didn't accept that lease.
What did she ask?
$1,575.
She wanted $1,575.
Yes, ma'am.
And you determined that that was too much rent
did.
for you.
I did.
So you gave notice you were leaving.
I did.
She's going to show me what she considers $5,000 worth of damage to the house. I want to see it.
Yes, ma'am.
Now I want you to show me what damage you are ascribing to him from the house.
Okay, I have the pictures here, Your Honor.
Okie dokie.
Danielle and Michael Francis claim their former tenant, Anthony Morris, damaged their property while renting from them.
When did you give notice you were leaving?
30 days before June 1st.
Okay. And when was the lease up?
June 1st, it would expire.
Now, after your brother passed away and you inherited the house, did you maintain the same rent that he was paying to your brother?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So when did you raise his rent and to what amount?
I raised the rent in November
Okay.
of 2021.
To what?
To $14.95.
That was the first time you raised his rent?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you knew what his rent was when he was living with your brother?
Correct.
And how much was his rent when he was living with your brother?
It was $625.
So, in effect, you increased his rent a little over 200%.
Yes, ma'am, Your Honor. And can I explain the reason to that?
No, it's irrelevant what the reason was.
Okay.
He was paying rent of $625. You raised it to $1,500. Now, at the end of that term, were you going to raise his rent again?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
To what?
It was going to be an $80 increase to $1,575.
Now, during that 2-month period that you lived in the house, you had no issue with regard to the way Mr. Morris maintained the house while you were living there with your brother. And that fact is buttressed by the fact that you maintained him as a tenant, right?
Correct.
Okay, so you saw the way he maintained the house, and having seen that, you continued him as a tenant.
Correct.
And you raised his rent substantially, and he paid that rent.
Correct.
And he paid that rent sufficiently so that you were prepared to re-rent him the house, but you just wanted a little more money.
Correct.
Correct. Now he moves out on June 1st of this year. And now you say that he caused almost $5,000 worth of damage. And because he had damage, you lost income because you couldn't re-rent the house.
Correct.
You moved out in June of 2020.
Yes, ma'am.
You have a new tenant in the house.
Yes, ma'am, I do now.
And how much rent is she paying?
She is paying $2,200 a month.
And when did her lease start?
Her lease started in September.
So your premises was not rented for 2 months.
Correct.
And when it was rented from the 2-year period of time between your brother's death and your re-renting the house, the rent went from $625 to $2,200.
Yes, ma'am.
Doesn't sound like you're losing any money.
Well, there's
just a second.
Okay.
Doesn't sound like you're losing any money. So I'm not interested in the loss of income that you had. You had no loss of income. Anybody who lives in a house can't rent from June 1st. House has to be painted, normal wear and tear. You may have to redo carpeting. That's the normal wear and tear. Had to be done because that's what you do when you want to get $2,200 rent from somebody for a house. You have to paint it up. You have to freshen it up. You have to do all of those things. So what I want to see from you are photographs of what, other than cleaning out the house, which Mr. Morris acknowledges for whatever reason there was stuff left in the house. Correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
That belonged to you.
Yes, ma'am.
And that you didn't clean out.
I did not.
Now, you left on June 1st, and I'm telling her that she's going to show me what she considers $5,000 worth of damage to the house. I want to see it.
Yes, ma'am.
You agree that you left some stuff in the house. She probably has a bill for cleaning out some of that stuff. That she's entitled to. Now I want you to show me what damage you are ascribing to him from the house.
Okay. I have the pictures here, Your Honor.
Okie dokie.
Also, can I present in evidence what the room that the defendant rented out, what it looked like prior to the damages?
No, I don't see any damages. I see mess.
There's pictures in there, Your Honor.
I'm looking.
The damages. The carpet was damaged very badly. He messed up my mattress in my second bedroom. The doors was damaged. He actually changed the lock on the second bedroom door and the master bedroom door without my
You see all
knowledge.
this stuff, sir? Shh,
Yes,
just a
ma'am.
second. This is all your junk, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you should have a substantial bill for cleaning and getting rid of this.
Yes.
I'd like to see it.
Here you go.
So you paid $760 to clean out the house.
Yes, ma'am.
Make it move in clean.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what you're entitled to, Miss Francis. $760. You can't leave a place like that.
Also, Your Honor, I had other damages as well. My microwave was broken.
I don't know who broke that, and you don't know.
I know it was working when he was there.
May have been working, may have been not working.
Everything was in top-notch condition, from appliances to flooring, when Mr. Morris was at the house. So he broke my microwave.
Fix it.
I have fixed it, and I'm asking for the cost of a replacement for a new one.
No, wait.
Why not?
Because I'm not convinced, madam, that somebody who, according to you, helped you with your brother, was there and supportive for the last year of his life. He certainly left a mess, which you're not supposed to do, sir.
I understand.
You're not supposed to leave a mess. And this is clearly a mess. And there's no question in my mind that you left this mess because she was quadrupling your rent. But to her, this is a business. And she's not living there with her husband. This has now become a business investment. Yeah. Her investment increased in value. It was really Julius's investment, but it increased in real estate value. And instead of seeing $600 a month, which probably doesn't cover the taxes and mortgage, she now has a profit because she's now getting $2,200 a month from somebody, and that covers, of course, her mortgage and whatever taxes they are. You were annoyed? You're still not allowed to leave a place like this. $760, judgment for the plaintiff. We're done.
Court is adjourned.
Kind of upsetting because the defendant really trashed my brother's house, given that we considered him like family.
I was like family with him. I took care of the brother for a long period of time. I wouldn't have left the house like that.
And for him to turn around and do this and cause all those damages and then get off scot-free, it's heartbreaking.
Number one, there were no damages.
You know what? Nothing good ever comes to someone who does people like this.
Money does change people, and so you have to be careful.
Be careful who you rent to.
So I just did some research on the home while we were out there, and I found some interesting information just based on some of the plaintiff's claims. So I did find that the house was sold to the brother in 2017 for $123,000. But the plaintiff listed the home for rent for the first time July 22nd for $2,300 listed for rent when she became the owner.
And he moved out in June, beginning of June.
So her claim for lost income doesn't really make sense because she had it listed on Zillow at least. I'm not sure it could have been listed before then. That's just when Zillow picked up on it. I'm not sure how their algorithms work, but she was unable to get the $2,300 presumably because she reduced it to $2,200 in August of 2022. And then it was removed later in August at that $2,200 mark, presumably whoever, the new tenant that she now has.
So she had no real lost income.
Exactly. She had the month of maybe July, but if you have a tenant moving out June 1st, you give yourself 2 weeks notice as a landlord anyway to make the necessary painting, carpet
and sometimes it takes a little bit.
Exactly, and you don't find a tenant right away. So based on that, I wouldn't have given her any lost
income for the He left the house a mess.
He did. He left boxes. He acknowledged it.
He left the place a mess. He left food in the refrigerator, and there's no way in one day, which he said, he was going to move all that stuff out. He was annoyed. Then you can't leave stuff.
हेलो दोस्तों, अब बनाने चालू किया है वीडियो, तो बोलो क्या रिएक्शन देते हैं आपके इस कमेंट पे। देखिए दोस्तों, ये है हमारे चश्मे वाले भाई, आप पहचानते हो तो कमेंट करिए। देखिए दोस्तों, मैं आपकी सिर्फ 5 मिनट बगाड़ूंगा, ज़्यादा कोई नहीं टाइम लूँगा, ठीक है। तो 5 मिनट आपका टाइम है तो ज़रूर लाइव बने रहिए। देखो दोस्तों, आधा क्लैरिटी सब अच्छी आओ।
दोस्तों, बहुत ही सुंदर क्लियरिटी के साथ में फिर से
हाजिर होते हैं हमें आपके पास।
पाकिस्तान से आपके समक्ष पेश किया जा रहा है। क्या पेश किया जाए।
तो दोस्तों आपने अभी तक हमारे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया तो सब्सक्राइब जरूर कीजिए।
ये हमारा गच्चा भाई है जो कापड़ के बहुत ही थोक विक्रेता है। इनके पास कापड़ मिलता है और कापड़ के बहुत ही बड़े व्यापारी हैं। जितना कापड़ चाहिए आपको, बांधनी चाहिए, घाघरा चोली चाहिए और जो भी कापड़ होता है वो सब मिल जाता है। और कुछ बोलो जो समझा पाऊंगा ये शर्मा गए हैं।
और दोस्तों आप क्या कर रहे हो बोलो।
आज मुझे अपने फ़ोन में और अपने जो कैमरा है जो मैं जिससे शूटिंग कर रहा हूँ, DSLR का कैमरा है 1,38,000 का, उसमें क्लियरिटी कुछ ज़्यादा ही अच्छा दिख रहा है। तो क्या वाकई में क्लियरिटी अच्छा है? आप मुझे कमेंट करके ज़रूर बताएं। तो मेरा भ्रम है कि क्लियरिटी अच्छा है। तो दोस्तों लाइक करें, फॉलो करें, शेयर करें, सब्सक्राइब करें। ठीक है दोस्तों, बारिश का मौसम बलूचिस्तान।
और दोस्तों बोलिए क्या कर रहे हो। आपने अभी तक हमारे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया तो सब्सक्राइब जरूर कीजिए।
दिस वीडियो इज मेड फॉर एजुकेशनल पर्पस ओनली। तो सिल्वर के रेट में क्या होता है कि सिल्वर का जो रेट है ना वो बहुत ही अच्छा है, वैसे तो कुछ बोल नहीं सकते।
बराबर
सिल्वर का रेट रोज बढ़ता है, घटता है, सब होता रहता है।
ठीक ठीक,
तो बढ़ने दो घटने दो, अपने को क्या है,
अपने को वीडियो बनाना है।
मन होगा ना बढ़ेगा घटेगा।
अपने को क्या, अपने को वीडियो बनाना है और शेयर करना है और पब्लिक का टाइम मैनेजमेंट
अच्छा यूज
करो।
पब्लिक को सिखाओ कुछ
टाइम कैसे वेस्ट करें।
जानकारी दो अच्छी अच्छी। ये भी जानकारी है एक तरह की, भाई रेट बढ़ेगा या घटेगा।
बोलो क्या होगा।
ठीक है, कॉल करके आपको।
तो दोस्तों अभी मिनट हुए है 2 मिनट 40 सेकंड। तो सिर्फ रुकते रहिए, हमारे पास 50 सेकंड और भी मिलेंगे अगले वीडियो में। अभी तक लाइक नहीं किया तो लाइक ज़रूर कीजिए, सब्सक्राइब कीजिए, शेयर करिए, फॉलो तो करिए। हमारा इंस्टाग्राम पे अकाउंट है लेकिन आपको नहीं मिलेगा क्योंकि इसमें मेंशन नहीं किया। ठीक है, तो दोस्तों मिलते हैं अगले वीडियो में। थैंक यू।